That's an alchemical. So this is Jonah. And what happened to Jonah, roughly speaking, is that God told him he was supposed to go somewhere and he didn't want to go there. And so he got on a boat, and then there was a big storm, and none of the sailors knew why the storm came up, and Jonah finally said, well, it's probably my fault because God told me to go do something and I didn't want to do it. So God sent this storm. So they take Jonah and they throw him off the boat. You know, and he's okay with that because it's his fault. And then the water's calm, and then this big whale comes up and swallows him, and then it spits him out on the ground 3 days later, roughly speaking. The first idea is that if you're called, you better listen. Well, modern people never believe that they're called to do anything, but that's because they're not very bright. They don't pay any attention, and you know perfectly well that you're called to do things because now and then you know that you should have said something. You know it. Right, sometimes you don't know. Should have you said something? Should have you not? Just beware of doing such things. You know, if you don't listen, something will come up from the depths and swallow you. And if you're lucky, it'll spit you back up 3 days later, but it's not necessary that it will. It might just swallow you, and that will be the end of that. You know, and I've seen people who are tangled up in such trouble, they don't have enough life left to fix it. Maybe more, but certainly 100. You know, and those 100 just bad decisions are usually sins of omission. They're usually things that you know you should do, and then you just don't. Just like the kind of willful blindness that doomed Osiris. So it's not active repression. It's just failure to engage when you know you should. Okay, you do that 100 times in a day, and it's like 700 in a week, and it's 3,000 in a month, roughly speaking, and it's 36,000 in a year. And then you do that for 10 years, that's 360,000. So then you have 360,000 things lying around you that you have to fix. And the problem is, well, you wouldn't even fix one of those things when they popped up. And so that's how Tiamat reappears. This looming chaos monster, and the probability that that thing's going to eat you, or that you're going to live in its belly, very bad idea. And it's often the case that people just don't have enough time and energy left, or willpower, or character by that time, because they're destroying their own character. They've had it. We cannot help them. We cannot fix it. They're done. They walk into the little bed and breakfast, and it's, hi dear. It's a predatory smile. Like you could see they're unconscious. You'd see two people with their hands around each other's throat, the belly of the beast. Your body, it's smart. It knows where you are. It's really bad. Virtually an unlimited imagination for evil. It can get really bad. You know, people who think that hell isn't real, they're just not paying any attention at all. Plenty real. The map is blinding us completely to the possibilities of being. First manifests itself in this horrific dragon-like form, but it's paradoxical. What's anomalous to you is certainly capable of devouring you, and this is why these archetypes are also so complex, because the hard problem is why we are conscious. Everything is either one thing, it's not itself and the opposite of itself at the same time. Enough of that for a while. It's too rational, it's too limited, and it misses the central issue for experiences or classes of experience that don't have a logical framework. We can't separate the bloody things out. They always confront us as a unity, and so the dragon figure, the predatory reptile, is like that, because you might say, without the predatory reptile, there's no gold. And then you might ask, well, is the reptile worth the gold? It's like, I mean, that's basically what human beings are betting on. You know, we're betting that if we confront the unknown and we gather the treasure, if we gather the information as a consequence, that will help us beat the dragon. The gold is more than the dragon. It better be, you know. But we're betting on that, and that is not terror management. That's a whole different idea. It's a whole different idea. It's not a delusion or an illusion. It's a bet. If you live as if it's true, then it might become true. And that's the act of faith from a Kierkegaardian perspective. Decide that that will work. And then you have to follow it, the critical choice that people make. And you have to be willing to see where it leads. Now, so here's two ways to use language. So I have a goal in mind. It's extraordinarily interesting and extremely psychopathic, you know. They have a bunch of tricks like wear an expensive watch and dress up, and also communicate about the situation and your response to the situation, whatever it is, as clearly and accurately and articulately as you possibly can all the time, and see what happens. transforming your experience into reality, the things that will follow from that will be the best things that can possibly be, even if you don't know what they are. And in what way are you willing to confront it? Out of that arises illumination. It's maybe the night first. What arises out of that is the contents of the unconsciousness, and then finally illumination. So it's like Horus arising from the depths. It's a story of transformation. The transformation of what matters into illumination. That's what that means. If you notice, the dragon is emitting sperm into this thing that's like an egg. And this egg thing has wings, and that's the round chaos I was talking about before. It's the container of what matters. It's what's similar across every instance of what matters. Now, one of the aspects of being is that it matters. That's not true. It's incredibly deceptive. Because, the best way to deceive someone is to sort of tell them the truth. Not only are you innocent because you told the truth, they're even more guilty because they're too weak to handle the truth. So, man, you can really wallop someone with that. So that's the container of what matters. It first manifests itself in this potentially horrific form. So there's some other representations of Jonah. Luckily, he got back up. It just relates an archetypal tale. So it's brave man against horrific beast from the depths. So those are the Greeks going after the Hydra. And you see the circle at the bottom of the Hydra there, that's like a symbol of infinity. And so what are the Greeks doing? They're tackling infinity. Well, that is what the Greeks did. That's why we still remember them. It's like those characters, they were tough people, man. There was something about them that was truly remarkable. There was only 25,000 people in Athens. So I don't know what was up with them, but they certainly got this part right. I guess maybe what was up with them is that's how they thought of themselves. It's like they're not running away. You can make a pretty strong case that if a seven-headed snake with infinite length came rolling towards you, it's like time to head for the hills, right? Not like stand there with your bronze axe and grip. And the transmission of information is at a level that's below articulation. It's imagistic. So maybe it's modifying the structure of the contents of your right hemisphere. God only knows. It's embodied. What do they want to do? They want to put on a little Superman cape, wander around being Superman, And that's the level at which the information is being transmitted. Element, insofar as you can mimic it, now becomes part of your behavioral repertoire. It's like, we don't know what the hell we're doing, but it seems sort of like a guy with a bronze axe attacking a snake. It's like, what kind of snake? Well, it's an infinite snake with many heads. And that would have been a work of imagination. So this chaos monster, dragon, breaks itself into two things. That's the initial differentiation. So it breaks itself into the Great Father and the Great Mother. So that's the emergence. So it's the Great Mother, in some sense, emerges first and the Great Father second, although you can't really say that. Like, the way the myths work is that three things emerge at the same time. The Great Mother, so that's kind of the unknown as you confront it, and the Great Father, which is you as a reader, and then the hero, which is you as an active agent. You might say one of those precedes the other, but that isn't how it works. In the myths, it just says, no, as soon as things split, that's what they split into. There has to be something. There has to be the interpretation of something, and there has to be the interpreter. Well, it's an idea. The fundamental elements of being are, there's a pool of information, there's a reader of the information, so that would be Osiris, roughly speaking, and then there's a reader. The book contains patterns. It contains representations of behavioral patterns. And the way that you interpret those behavioral patterns is by using the reader that's in your head, which is really that structure, that hierarchical structure that I talked about. Because if you didn't have that in your damn head, you couldn't understand the book. Because the only thing that, like if you and I are talking and we're communicating, there's a lot we have to agree on before we can even say anything about which we might disagree. What I have to do is assume a bunch of things that you know, because then I don't have to say those things. Because it would take an infinite amount of time to say everything that I need to say. I can play at the fringes, what you just set up the situation, and poof, you know what anger means, you know what sorrow means, you know what love means, etc., etc. But it have to all come out at the same time. The hero, the Great Mother, and the Great Father pop out. He emerges out of undifferentiated reality. So that's at the base of our conceptual structures. have enough at that point.